This week at the movies, some of the year's biggest blockbusters.
A-list actors.
What is he doing?
You really messed up.
Do you hear me?
Oscar-winning directors.
They've come for their revenge.
What do they all have in common?
You look like a cheese nip.
They're all included in our worst movies of 2009.
Sounds cute. I can't wait.
Some of our very biggest stars appeared in some of the very worst movies of 2009. I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
And I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune. Our first category is Oscar winners gone bad. After The Da Vinci Code and now Angels and Demons, Oscar winner Tom Hanks should write a guidebook, Europe on 10 tons of boredom a day. Did anyone tell Oscar-winning director Ron Howard or the screenwriters that this Dan Brown stuff is supposed to be fun? Even with the Illuminati breathing down its neck, Angels and Demons turned out to be just as solemn and dull as The Da Vinci Code. All those clues, and yet so clueless.
Kind of annihilation. How violent?
A cataclysmic event. A blinding explosion equivalent to about 5 kilotons.
Vatican City will be consumed by light.
After a return to form in Vicky Cristina Barcelona, Oscar winner Woody Allen dug deep into his script drawer, pulled out something he wrote back in the 70s, put Larry David in the lead, and presto, whatever works should have been called whatever doesn't work at all.
This is not the feel-good movie of the year. So if you're one of those idiots who needs to feel good, go get yourself a foot massage.
It's the story of a misanthrope's completely unconvincing relationship with a completely unconvincing southern runaway young enough to be his granddaughter.
Do you want to be buried or cremated?
All right, I really don't want to talk about that, okay?
I think I want to be cremated.
All right, will you just shut up, cretin?
There's no words.
Well, Mel Cooley on the old Dick Van Dyke Show had a word for it, and that word is yich.
Yeah, I'm a big Woody Allen fan, and I took my son, who's a teenager, to see this. He'd never seen a Woody Allen movie before, and we walked out of the screening room, and he looked at me and said, "Dad, that was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life." He just turns them out. You know, he just turns them out. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes
slow down and write.
Really
slow
bad.
down.
Now, 2 certifiably great movies were nominated for last year's Best Foreign Language Oscars: Waltz with Bashir from Israel and The Class from France. But the winner was a Japanese film called Departures, and it shows that banality knows no borders. Schmaltzy sentiment is a universal language. This story of a cello player who moves back to his hometown to take a job preparing corpses will more likely turn your stomach than warm your heart.
誰でも必ず死ぬだろ? 俺だって死ぬし、君だって死ぬ。死そのものが普通なんだよ。
Director Sam Mendes won his Oscar for American Beauty. It was wildly overrated in its day, but nowhere near as unpleasant as the passive-aggressive, lovey-dovey, hipster-breeder road epic Away We Go.
Now I'm wondering what we're doing.
Did you look at the itinerary? I stapled it to the inside of your jacket.
Many a road, you know.
See?
Maya Rudolph and John Krasinski play a cute couple traveling around the country looking for a place to nest. They encounter a succession of sad, mean, and otherwise unworthy people, including a shrill red state nincompoop, played by Allison Janney, and a shrill blue state nincompoop, played by Maggie Gyllenhaal. A more honest and better title would have been Please Go Away.
Or Smug and Smugger. I think it's, I did not hate this film like you did. I think Maya Rudolph actually saved a lot of it, but, you know, for me, American Beauty was actually more painful in a lot of ways. I still feel like I'm watching that bag floating around.
Well, the odd thing about this, too, is that the script was co-written by Dave Eggers, who also wrote Where the Wild Things Are, one of my favorite movies of the year. So maybe there's just something wrong
One
with
for
me.
two.
I don't
One
know.
for two.
Our next category is Teenage Wasteland. The nerdy valedictorian falls in love with the cheerleader. We've seen that scenario many times before, but never quite so witlessly and painfully executed as in I Love You, Beth Cooper.
Don't be so nervous. You can smell fear.
Ooh, fear.
It's the last night of high school, and Dennis Cooverman is having a party. Beth Cooper and her babylicious friends show up, and then, why am I still talking about this movie? I've managed to blot out my own painful memories of high school humiliation. Is there some drug that I can take to make me forget that I ever saw this movie?
Here's a movie that makes high school life look like a circle of hell if hell had pep rallies. 17 Again was like the movie Big in reverse, but not, you know, any good. Matthew Perry magically turns into Zac Efron here, but they aren't the problem.
You look just like my husband, doesn't he?
My ex-husband? That is so weird.
It's weird.
It's the writers who should get detention for their depiction of women in this film. Seen here as either brats, sluts, idiots, or all three. The number 17 could sue this movie, and so should the word again. I hated it, and people should see Adventureland just to get the taste of this movie and yours out of their
Yeah,
mouths.
well, it's true. I mean, you know, the high school comedy always has a certain kind of cheesy, guilty pleasure potential, but these just are so awful and unfunny and gross. I mean, this is a year that saw the untimely death of John Hughes, who made some of the most sweet and wonderful high school comedies that really stand the test of time. And
Yeah,
why?
better than these, certainly.
Much better. And coming up next, America's Sweethearts, Sandra Bullock and Jennifer Aniston are slumming it in some of the worst movies of 2009.
You guys belong together.
Want the best in stain?
Michael and I are making our picks for the worst movies of 2009. Our next category is Loathe Actually. Sandra Bullock was in two big hits in 2009, the romantic comedy The Proposal and the uplifting football drama The Blind Side. I still don't know what she was doing in the maniacally unfunny comedy All About Steve, but she sure was doing a lot of it.
Steve! 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 Steve!
Oh, Jesus, she's got a machete. Where the hell did she get a machete? Oh, my God. She's going to cut my feet off. I'm not going to be able to walk.
She was babbling a mile a minute, ripping off Bradley Cooper's clothes, chasing him halfway across America, and then falling down a hole, which is what should have happened to this movie.
Amen. My pick is Love Happens. It's about what happens when a grief counselor and a best-selling author, played by Aaron Eckhart, happens to meet a florist, played by Jennifer Aniston. Do we root for these two? No, we don't.
Can I say something? With the acknowledgement that my life is an experiment in really bad decisions. You're really messed up.
This is a movie about the grieving process, namely the audiences. What passes for romantic comedy banner, interrupted by truckloads of pathos, seems painfully obligatory. Tony, this was in one eye, out the other.
Yeah, frankly, I forgot about this movie before it was even over. So let's go back and talk about Sandra Bullock, who had a big year, kind of a big comeback.
The Proposal, yes, of course.
And The Blind Side, and then this one. And
just this one. Yeah.
What was it?
No, you know, this kind of screwball farce, if you don't pull it off, and then you know, it just lays there like a lox, and it's all this extra energy she adds to it, it just makes it more tiring. On the other hand, our next category is animation, Devastation. Just because a film is animated doesn't mean it's animated. My pick is Planet 51, about an astronaut discovering an alien planet where life is like 1950s America, only with green, squiggly aliens.
I found the alien. I'm not the alien here. You are. What? What? Huh? Hello?
This film made 87 minutes feel like a lifetime littered with jokes about anal probes. And honestly, that's no way to live your life. The movie's only appealing character, a robot that is so much a ripoff of WALL-E, they should have called it WALL-E. No, thank you.
That was a bad one, but I got a worse one.
Let's hear it.
Now, Americans, we have issues with food. We eat too much, or we eat the wrong kind, or we worry too much that we're eating the wrong kind. But the wild popularity of Cloudy with a Chance at Meatballs, a hyperactive, 3D animated junk food binge, suggests nothing less than a national case of food poisoning.
The pizza's chasing us!
I've got to stop the machine. The fate of the world depends on me.
No big deal.
The climactic sequence in which a giant airborne digestive tract in effect undergoes a space probe-induced enema took away my appetite for weeks. And yet you said you should rent Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I liked it more than Monsters vs. Aliens, so bad pick,
well, it's, you know, it's bon appetit is all I can say.
When we come back, Jamie Foxx, John Travolta, and Robin Williams, high-profile actors laid low by their material. More of the worst films of 2009 next. Continuing with the worst films of 2009, our next category is star vehicles that crashed. Tony asked me, what's the key to good screen comedy?
Michael, what's
timing?
the key?
That's what it is, timing. And speaking of timing, let's talk about Old Dogs. Bad timing, plus hammering repetition, golf ball in the groin, again and again. Plus, a couple of stars struggling like maniacs to infuse some life into a lifeless story of two 50-something pals babysitting for a couple of kids for a couple of weeks. And if this is the the state of slapstick comedy in the year 2009? Well, Tony, I'm moving to another state.
My pick for star vehicle that crashed is Law-Abiding Citizen. It has all the grisly sadism of a Saw torture fest, but without the grimy integrity of that low-budget franchise, and with a whole lot of big explosions and self-important speeches from the two stars. Jamie Foxx, who should know better, and Gerard Butler, whose resume so far suggests that he doesn't.
Counselor, you might want to cancel your 12:30 lunch with Judge Roberts.
Hello? Butler is an ordinary guy who turns into some kind of vengeful, mad criminal genius. And Fox is his district attorney nemesis. It's hard to know who to root for in this picture. I just rooted for the thing to be over.
Yeah, can we go back to Old Dogs a second? I mean, honestly,
by all means.
To me, that was the pain that keeps on giving. I mean,
it was so, I mean, you said discomfort, and John Travolta just kind of jumping up and down and acting crazy, and nothing working. And they have, you know, a dead script, and all they do is just turn up the volume and act more crazy.
No, I would have paid another $11 just to get a joke or two, along with the pain.
You wouldn't find it there. You better luck hanging out with you if you want to.
Right, or you even. Our next category is Fire Your Agent. The tie that binds this one is actress Malin Ackerman. I'm not saying that her movie Watchmen felt long or anything, but sometime around hour 17 of the single-mindedly vicious adaptation of the Alan Moore graphic novel, cinematic rigor mortis set in.
Why would I save a world I no longer have any stake in?
Do it for me.
If it weren't for Carla Gugino and Jackie Earle Haley, I wouldn't have known there were actual actors up there on the screen acting. And Ackerman, the luckiest actress in Hollywood, is Silk Spectre. OMG, LOL, right up there with her work in the Heartbreak Kid remake. Not my favorite film either.
No, and neither is the next one. Poor Malin Ackerman. Not only was she featured in the worst superhero sex scene of all time in Watchmen, but also in one of the least sexy sex comedies in recent memory, an inexplicably popular group therapy session gone bad called Couples Retreat, where she played opposite Vince Vaughn.
So I will transfer you my energy. I will transfer my karma. Here is my karma on you.
Jason!
You have a great aura. Yes.
Jason!
What is he doing?
I don't really know that pose.
Has Hollywood run completely out of fresh jokes? I know you haven't. Has America lost its sense of humor? Can a trip to the tropical paradise of Bora Bora really be so joyless?
People love Vince Vaughn. They go to his movies whether they stink or not. And I guess that's great if you're Vince Vaughn, but if you're in the audience watching Couples Retreat, no thank you.
And can we, you know, we have golf ball in the groin jokes. Can we get rid of those? And also yoga instructor jokes. Please, no more.
Oh, nothing inherently funnier.
Some of us take the practice of yoga very seriously.
Coming up next, Nicolas Cage and Kate Beckinsale star in action movies that put us to sleep as we continue with the worst movies of 2009.
Our next category for worst movies of 2009 is thrill-free thrill rides. Sometime in the 1950s, a little girl wrote down a lot of numbers. It was part of an intergalactic conspiracy to make Nicolas Cage act crazy. Doesn't take much these days. The movie is called Knowing, though a better title might have been Wondering What in God's Name is Going On.
The numbers are a warning, but not just to me or any random group. They're a warning to everyone.
I think what's going on is that the world is ending. The aliens are coming, and boy, does it all make Cage mad.
We have a chance. You said the sun can't reach that far.
The caves won't save us! Nothing can!
This movie falls into the so bad it's kind of fun category, and connoisseurs of nutty overacting will make a special place for it on their shelves.
Okay, my pick is Whiteout. Now, check out this scene from the climax of this Antarctica set murder mystery. I'm sorry, what did we just see? It's like a big screen version of a Rorschach blot. Kate Beckinsale plays a U.S. Marshal trying to leave Antarctica and get back to warmer climes, but these pesky dead bodies, they just keep getting in the way. So not fair, and the thriller is so not thrilling. Further proof that not all graphic novels are meant to be filmed, Tony. This one was one of the dullest graphic novels.
I still think it should have had penguins, but never mind. But what about Nicolas Cage? Now, why is it? We just were talking a while back about Bad Lieutenant, which is like a good, crazy Nicolas Cage performance.
Yes.
Now, Knowing, on the other hand, is a bad, crazy Nicolas Cage performance.
Look, material means something. You know, it's not. People always tend to blame a movie's success or failure on the people on the screen. I really believe that, and that's natural because that's our closest relationship is always to the stars. You know, Nicolas Cage didn't write Knowing, and he didn't direct it. You know, not his fault.
It's true. And actually, if he hadn't been in it, it would have just been a boring movie. In this one, it's kind of an interestingly terrible one.
There you go. Okay. Okay, our next category is True Life, Truly Awful. Tucker Max is a blogger and best-selling author whose exploits with booze and easily impressed women have won him a following, particularly on the drunken fraternity college circuit. Now, the movie version of this self-made and relentlessly self-marketed artist's life is called I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
What you doing?
I'm talking to the turtles.
Are they telling you to kill that fat girl behind us? Because that's what they're telling me to do.
What? How can you be mad about that? Fat girls aren't real people.
This is the most hypocritical guy movie ever made. 2/3 of it, laughless exploitation, and then poor Tucker goes too far and realizes, oh, how badly I've treated everyone, but I can change, I can change. Yeah, meantime, I'm still out $11, and I hope they're showing, I hope they serve beer in hell. That's what I think.
Dude, bummer. If you think Robert Pattinson is only capable of playing sparkly vampires, well, on the evidence of Little Ashes, you may well be right. Here he borrows Antonio Banderas' Spanish accent and Javier Bardem's hairdo from No Country for Old Men to play Spanish surrealist painter Salvador Dali.
We need to go beyond empathy.
No limit.
No limit.
Unlike I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, this is an achingly sincere group biopic about artists in their college days. And this really would have worked better maybe as a silent film, or a painting, or a short poem, or a Monty Python skit.
Yeah. Robert Pattinson, I think, will survive. His career will, in fact, survive a little pisher like Little Ashes, but, you know, it's...
But he'll always have it. Someone will always find it and, you know, post something on YouTube. It's just, it's finest moment. The naked moonlight swim, that's really, you know, a keeper. Coming up next, we make our picks for the absolutely, positively worst movie of 2009.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by...
You decide, whiten your teeth with strips that slip or whiten them 25% faster with Aquafresh White Trays. A study shows white trays whiten 25% faster than Crest White Strips Premium, and use them just once a day. Start seeing results in 3. Aquafresh White Trays.
True or false? Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago. Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience. Located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
And now the mother of all categories, the absolute worst film of the year. My pick for the bottom of this year's barrel stands alone. It's The Ugly Truth. This movie represents a host of other examples of the near-death state of one of my favorite genres, the romantic comedy. Now, what did women do to deserve the depictions of themselves in the typical 21st century rom-com?
You're a very attractive woman, but you're completely inaccessible. You're all about comfort and efficiency.
What's wrong with comfort and efficiency?
Nothing.
Hello, may I be of assistance?
Yes, you may. We need that cocktail dresses, tight jeans, and some bras.
If they're not shrews or bimbos, they're inhuman control freaks just waiting to be knocked upside the head by Mr. Right. That's the setup of The Ugly Truth, co-starring Katherine Heigl and Gerard Butler, who's making his second appearance on our show.
I don't want to be perceived as a bimbo. I mean...
And I don't want you to be a bimbo. You have to be two people, the saint and the sinner, the librarian and the stripper.
But The Ugly Truth was this year's most singularly depressing comedy. Crass, witless. I mean, Watchmen had a lighter touch.
It's funny, I guess if Gerard Butler were a woman, he'd be Malin Ackerman.
Right. They're not untalented, you know, hacks.
Nor is Katherine Heigl, you know, who was very good in Knocked Up and on TV. But I agree with you. I mean, the state of romantic comedy and the state of women's romantic chances, as shown in this movie.
Yeah, it's just depressing. It's just doormats. Yeah. All they are is doormats, and I cannot believe that that's the best we can do.
And you want romance. And maybe some comedy, too.
Yeah. You want it all, baby.
Yeah, well, I can have it all. Most of the bad movies that we've talked about here are failures. But to be the very worst movie of the year, a picture has to succeed. It has to be triumphant, even transcendent in its badness. And for me, this year, there was really no competition. No movie reached higher into the realms of grinding, obnoxious stupidity than Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
Radio children.
This scrap metal monstrosity directed by Michael Bay and starring a cast of broken toys and also Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox is not just a splitting headache of a movie, but really a threat to civilization as we know it. Or at very least, a mortal insult to the idea that movies should aspire to wit, grace, coherence, entertainment.
Do not touch it, okay? Don't touch it.
I'm not gonna touch it. Sam, it's fine. It's locked away. No one knows where it is.
I do. You're hot, but you ain't too bright.
Yes, I know, it was a very popular movie, the highest grossing film of the year. But I'm afraid that kind of proves my point.
That's how it goes with Michael Bay. He had the highest grossing film, Armageddon, right, a decade ago, and everybody went to not a good film either. You know, it depends what kind of junk you're going for. And if I was 14, would I be lining up a third time for Revenge of the Fallen? You know, it's possible. I'm not 14 anymore, and to me, this is not a good example of the kind of movie it's trying to be.
I mean, I like to be entertained. I like blockbusters. I like action movies. I like escapism. What I don't like is movies where I just feel like the whole point of them is to make me dumber.
Wait a minute, you like to be entertained? I can't believe it.
Well, I'm a serious critic, but what can I say?
To revisit all 20 movies on our complete list of pain, go to atthemoviestv.com.
And don't give up hope. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of new films, hopefully some good ones. Until then, we'll be at the movies.
30 winters ago, the war tore a hole in the sky. Close your eyes.
Jr. Also coming up this week,
Marion Cotillard is